These days we hear a lot about parampara, tradition. What exactly is tradition?
Number one, these days we don't hear of parampara and tradition. Actually, the paramparas and traditions have been dismantled. But yes, we have been hearing about parampara and tradition in many of the serials and movies. In real life, we don't hear of these things. When we were growing up, yes, our parents and grandparents used to talk about हमारे घर की ये परंपरा नहीं है and all that. But coming to your question, what is parampara? Whatever customs and practices that a particular family or a community follows and hands it down to the next generation is tradition. So, for example, a highly ritualistic family hands down the tradition of doing certain puja path in the annual calendar. That is tradition in the family. हमारे घराने की ये परंपरा है कि हम दिवाली में चोपड़ी पूजन करेंगे. Now, whether the chopdi is being used or not today is not important. लेकिन चोपड़ी घर में लाई जाएगी, उस पे वो स्वस्तिक ड्रॉ किया जाएगा और उसकी पूजा की जाएगी. ये परंपरा है. Today we are using tally, we are using laptop, computers, tabs. हाँ, आपकी अभी तो मोबाइल में भी आ गया. बट वो परंपरा नहीं छूटी, वो ट्रेडिशन है. चोपड़ी पूजन आज भी होता है.
So we hear particularly the elders saying that the younger generation is moving away from tradition, from parampara, and that is causing a lot of problems these days.
Two sides of the same coin. If the older generation is saying that the younger generation is moving away from the parampara, then somewhere the older generation failed in handing down the parampara to the younger generation. One aspect of the coin is this. The other aspect of the coin is the younger generation had a question, what is the logic in this parampara? And you didn't have the answer. If you had the answer, a logical answer, a scientific answer, a reasonable answer, probably you would have succeeded in convincing the younger generation that this parampara is valid even today. And then they would have obeyed. Now you cannot generalize this statement because you will see that in certain communities, parampara is handed down as a rule that you must follow. Correct? And the generations follow whether they like it or not. For a long time in Sikhism, not shaving was a parampara. Today you have designer beards and all that. Even that parampara has got diluted, but the beard is maintained. Yeah, as a parampara. Or you take in Islam, 5 times namaz is a parampara established so many 100 years ago, which is followed even today. So it is a diktat from the older generation to the younger generation. And it is a compulsion to be followed. Many of our traditions have lost their significance because A, we didn't know the meaning, why it was being done. So the logic was never translated. We ourselves were not committed to that ritual, parampara, logic, reasoning, and therefore we didn't give that much importance. And many a times we made a mockery of our tradition. So what message are you giving down the line? I'll share my experience. Okay, when I was growing up, Ganesh Utsav in Maharashtra was a religious festival. Sarvajanik Ganesh Utsav, politically motivated, was also a religious community Utsav. As I grew up, and by the time I reached the age of 50, the Ganesh Utsav at the Sarvajanik level became a mockery. It became an avenue to make money for the local fellows who were organizing that thing. Behind the Ganesh idol, there is jua going on, there is drinks going on, and outside the pandal, dances are going on Bollywood music. What happened to the sentiment of the Ganesh Puja? it got distorted. We allowed this distortion to happen because traditionally, what is Ganesh Puja? Nobody bothered to explain. Nobody was strict enough to implement. So traditions can also be a diktat from generation. ये करना ही है. Today's generation is more inquisitive than the older generation, which was more obedient. Today, the obedience comes with reasoning and logic. You will not get obedience just because you are saying so.
But there are influences that come from outside also, which affect the.
If your knowledge is weak, then the outside influences will be strong.
We have heard of a family where they say, the head of the family says, everybody shall dine at the same time, all the mobiles shall be kept aside. And that tradition.
Oh, there is a big business house where it is a rule that at 8 o'clock the head of the family is at the dining table. Every evening, 8 p.m., he is at the dining table. It's a very famous business house. I don't want to take the names. Other family members have to come. By 8:15, they start eating dinner. If you are not there at the table at 8:15, the remaining members will start eating. It is followed even today. But it's a tradition in the family. 8 baje dining table pe hona hai. The other rule that family follows is no mobiles. So there is a basket kept on a side table. Everybody has to deposit the mobile there and come to the dining table. So you're not going to indulge in your private mobile conversations while dining. While dining, whatever conversation happens is happening with the family members. It's a rule. It's a tradition handed down from generations.
For instance, can I call the Hindu joint family also as part of the tradition?
It was. It got disintegrated by influences. The other influences were stronger. Why you're talking of joint family? Take arranged marriage. Arranged marriage was a tradition and there was a logic behind it which was not explained. The reason why it was not explained is because people don't understand what a marriage is. Today, marriage is considered as a contract between two individuals. In the older times, marriage was integration of two families. So, the father and mother of the boy and the girl were equally members of the marriage. The uncles and aunts were members, the cousins and sisters and brothers were members. Marriage was integration. Today, marriage is about me and you, and others are not important. And therefore, you have got this concept of nuclear families. Why was the arranged marriage introduced? So that the upbringing of the boy and the upbringing of the girl happens in an environment to which both are familiar. So you marry to the same community. Then you are not going to adjust to something which is completely alien to you. Today, because of this love marriage concept, a person who has been brought up in a totally different environment marries a person who has been brought up in a totally different environment. There is a clash not only between those two individuals, but also in the ideologies of the two backup families. And you are seeing this in disintegration of the family system today. That's why there is a convenience that has crept in live-in relationships.
Except for the marriage function itself, which is still a little traditional, the rest of the things, their lives are independent.
I am not very sure whether the marriage functions are also traditional. Because in traditional marriage ceremonies, there were no stalls of Chinese counter and Italian counter and Indian counter. So I'm not very sure whether that. And everything is adjusted to convenience. Everything has become convenient. The dilutions have become convenient.
So what are the benefits of following tradition, and what does one lose if traditions are not followed?
Positives are obvious, that there is synchronicity and harmony. When every individual is tuned to a particular pattern, then that pattern is synchronous with all the members, and then the group as a whole is in harmony. That's the benefit. Now, what are the negatives? Negatives can come from impositions. Then there is a closed window which does not permit introduction of new ideas and modern concepts. So there is a risk of stagnation. If you are very traditional, then you tend to stagnate. Where to be traditional and rigid, and where to be flexible and absorb the benefits of modernity, that requires maturity and wisdom, which not many people have.